Nobody is running. Nobody has fallen down. The people around you are just standing there, shoulder to shoulder, waiting for a gate to open. And this is the single most dangerous thing a crowd ever does. We have the wrong word for it. We say stampede. Stampede means a mob at a sprint, and people going down under everybody's shoes. Almost none of that is what actually happens. In most fatal crowd events, nobody is charging anywhere, and most of the people who die never fall over at all. They die standing upright in a space where nobody meant anyone any harm. So why is standing still the dangerous part? And how would you know from the inside that the crowd you are in has crossed the line? Start with the one number that predicts almost everything. Not the size of the crowd. The number of people standing in 1 square meter. A square meter is small. Think of a bath mat or the floor space of a single office chair. At 1 or 2 people per square meter, you are fine. You can walk where you like, turn around, put your hands in your pockets. At 3 or 4, it is a busy crowd, and you are slower than you would like, but you can still pick a gap and take it. At 5, you are in contact with strangers on more than one side, and you cannot choose your own direction anymore. You go where the crowd goes, and you tell yourself it is just a bit packed in here. And then somewhere around 6 or 7 people per square meter, something changes in kind rather than in degree. When the bodies take up essentially all of the floor, individual control is gone. The engineer who first studied this properly put it precisely. You become an involuntary part of the mass. At about 7 people per square meter, a crowd stops behaving like a group of people and starts behaving like a fluid. Sit with that for a moment, because it is the whole video. You are not a person in a crowd anymore. You are a molecule in a liquid. And the difference between a great night out and a lethal environment is about 2 extra people standing on a bath mat. But density on its own does not kill anybody. What kills people is what a fluid can do that a group of individuals cannot. In a loose crowd, if somebody shoves you, you take a step. Your feet absorb it, the shove ends with you, and the crowd swallows the energy. In a packed crowd, there is no step to take. The push moves you an inch. You meet the person in front of you, and the force keeps going, into them and into the person in front of them. Bodies stop being obstacles and start being a medium. A shove at the back of a crowd arrives at the front as a wave. And these are not gentle waves. Investigators looking at the aftermath of fatal crowd events kept finding the same piece of evidence. Steel railings, bent. Bending that steel takes more than 4,500 newtons of force, over 1,000 pounds. And that is not one enormous person. That is a few hundred completely ordinary people, all leaning the same way at the same moment. The waves get strong enough to lift people off their feet and carry them 3 meters, around 10 feet. Without taking a single step. Nobody is running. Something is simply moving them. Which brings us to how a crowd actually kills, because it is not what most people picture. Breathing is muscular work. Your lungs do not suck air in. Your ribcage and your diaphragm expand, and air falls into the space you just made. So breathing needs room. An inch or 2 of it, every few seconds, all the way around your chest. Take that room away, and everything else about you can be perfectly fine. Engineers who reconstructed the forces inside real crowd events came out at around 4,000 newtons of chest pressure. Call it 900 pounds, front and back. That is enough to hold a ribcage shut. The medical name is compressive asphyxia, and in plain terms, it means this. You are standing up. You are uninjured. You are awake, and you cannot inhale. Consciousness goes within about 2 minutes, and because the crowd is holding you upright, you do not fall down, which means nobody more than an arm's length away can tell that anything is happening at all. And if somebody near you goes down, their space becomes a hole, and the people beside them fall into it, the same shape as a hole opening in ice. So here is the real question. If this is all measurable physics, why does it keep happening? Why does nobody in the crowd notice? Because from inside a crowd, you cannot see density. You can see the 4 or 5 people who are touching you. You cannot see the aerial view. And nobody ever decides to walk into a lethal crowd. The crowd turns lethal around them gradually while everyone is looking at the stage, Researchers have filmed this happening and mapped the stages. First, the flow is smooth, everybody moving together like water in a pipe. Then it becomes stop and go. The crowd lurches forward, jams, lurches, jams. That is the alarm. Every time the front stalls, more people arrive at the back, and the density ratchets up one more notch. Then the movement turns turbulent, and people get shoved sideways and backwards by nothing they can identify. And density is horribly one-directional. It is easy to add and nearly impossible to remove. The people at the back keep arriving because they cannot see any reason to stop. The people at the front cannot go backwards because there is a wall or a gate or a few thousand people. So the space fills up like a bathtub with the drain shut. In one landmark study, researchers analyzed video of more than 1 million people moving through the same site. Serious injuries began roughly 10 minutes after the movement turned turbulent, and roughly 30 minutes after those stop-and-go waves first appeared. 30 minutes. That is not a freak accident. That is half an hour of visible warning that nobody was watching for. So let us make this useful. Your own body is the density meter. If you are being touched at several points at once, both shoulders, your back, your sides, you are at roughly 6 people per square meter. If you cannot lower your arms or raise them, if your feet are getting moved for you, if you could not turn around and walk out even if you decided to, you are already in the dangerous range, and that is the moment to leave. Not later, when leaving is no longer one of the options. Getting out is sideways, not backwards. Move diagonally in the lulls between surges toward the edge of the crowd rather than against its direction. Pushing back against a fluid achieves nothing except spending air you need. Keep your arms up in front of your chest, forearms together like a boxer's guard, and hold that space, because that gap is your ability to breathe. And keep your feet under you, because staying upright is the whole game. But you should not need any of that, because everything I have just described is a solved engineering problem. Safe capacity gets worked out from floor area and exit width, not from how many tickets a place can sell. Flow is made one way, so 2 crowds cannot collide. Barriers break a crowd into blocks, so the pressure from 1,000 people cannot stack onto one person's ribs. And cameras now measure density in real time, precisely because that stop-and-go signal is something a computer can spot. But the cheapest fix, by a mile, is information. A crowd that knows why it has stopped and what is ahead of it stops pushing. An enormous amount of the pressure in a dangerous crowd is simply people who do not know that they should stop walking forward. Which is why the word matters so much. Stampede blames the dead. It says the crowd did this, that people panicked, that they trampled each other. The measurements say something much less dramatic and much more damning. The crowd did not fail. The space did. People do not die because they panic. They panic because they are dying, and by then the physics has been in charge for half an hour. So the next time you are packed into a corridor or a concert floor, and you feel the pressure ease and build, you will know exactly what you are feeling. It is a wave. In a fluid. That you are part of. And the number that matters is not how many people are in the building. It is how many are standing on your bath mat. And the next time somebody tells you a crowd killed people who were only standing still, well, then you'll know. And if you like the idea that an ordinary room can turn lethal on a clock, watch the one on flashover next. It is why you get about 3 minutes, and not 17.